lesson 3-4. Today we're going to be talking about solving equations using multiplication and division. So last lesson we talked about solving equations using addition and subtraction, but this time we're going to be doing the same process just with multiplication and division. So let's go ahead and revisit one of our terms from last lesson, which is inverse operations. So inverse operations are operations that undo each other. So anything that can cancel out a number because you're doing the opposite operation. So for example, if we had x plus 3 equals 5, instead of adding, we could use subtraction to be able to get the 3 off of this side and get it off of this side as well, so that we can keep our equations balanced. So the inverse operation of addition is subtraction. In this example, we have x minus 4 equals 3. In this case, since we're subtracting 4, we would want to add 4 to both sides to be able to cancel out the 4 so we could solve for x. So also the opposite of addition is subtraction. Here in this example, so this is stuff we did last lesson. This is stuff we're going to be doing this lesson. So if we have 3 times x, if we are going to solve for x, we would have to do the opposite operation. So instead of doing 3 times x, I'm going to have to divide 3 from this side and from this side so we can keep our equations balanced. So basically we're using the inverse operation, which is division of multiplication, or multiplication and division are inverses. So we're using the inverse so that we can cancel out the 3 so we can solve for the x. Alright, in this example over here we have x divided by 5 equals 20. Now if we wanted to go ahead and solve for x, we would have to take away the 5 from both sides, but instead of dividing, we'll have to multiply because those will cancel out since multiplication and division are inverses. So we would multiply by 5 and it will cancel out both of these 5 and it will multiply over here so that we can solve for x. Now, we're going to go ahead, even though I just touched on them, but go a little bit deeper into the two concepts of division property of equality and the multiplication property of equality. So the division property of equality, just like the addition and subtraction, means that you can divide on both sides of the equal sign to solve for x to keep your equations equal. So, for example, if I told you 10 is equal to 10, we could go ahead and divide from both sides, so I could divide 2 from both sides, and I'd get 5 equals 5. So basically, the point that we want to show here is that you can divide to both sides and you're still going to have 2 equal equations, which is the most important thing, because we can't have them equal over here but then not be equal over here. Because if we just divided 10 from one side and not the other, we would have 5 equals 10, which is not a true statement. So you always need to do the same thing on both sides. So if you're going to multiply to cancel out x, you're going to have to multiply on both sides. If you're going to divide to solve for x, you're going to have to divide on both sides to keep them balanced. Okay, and the multiplication property of equality is the same thing as the division, addition, and subtraction. So we can multiply to each side and we'll still have 2 equal equations. So you can use this property to solve for x. So for example, if we had 2 equals 2, I can go ahead and multiply anything from to each side to keep a balanced equation. So if I wanted to multiply 4 by both sides, 2 times 4 equals 2 times 4, then I'd get 8 equals 8. So basically, you can multiply the same number to both sides, and you'll still have equal equations. Now let's go ahead and apply these properties to some examples. Alright, let's go ahead and look at example number 1. Example number 1 says 4 times x equals 24. Now our whole goal is to solve for x. So in order to see what x is equal to, we have to get rid of the 4. So we need to go ahead and use the inverse operation. So in this problem, we are multiplying. So we need to go ahead and divide by 4 to cancel it off of both sides so that we can see what x is equal to. So if we divide by 4 over here, we have to divide by 4 over here because the division property of equality means you have to do it to both sides to keep it equal. So I'm going to divide by 4. So if you have 4 divided by 4, it gives you 1. So it cancels that out. So now we have a 1x or just an x. And then we'll do 24 divided by 4, which is x is equal to 6. Alright, example number 2 says negative 7 times t is equal to negative 42. Now, in this problem, we are going to have to divide because it's the inverse operation of multiplication. Because we want to get t by itself, we have to get rid of the negative 7. Now, we need to be very careful with negatives. So, multiplying and dividing integers, that skill is coming into play now. So, if we divide by a negative 7, and we divide by a negative 7, we are still keeping our equations equal because they're still balanced. So, we're going to go ahead and cancel out 7 completely. So, we'll have 1t, or just t. And then we have to do negative 42 divided by negative 7. Now, if you remember, a negative times a negative or a negative divided by a negative both give you positives because there are two negative signs. So that means that t is going to be equal to 6 as well. Example number 3. It says k divided by 3 is equal to 9. So remember, division and multiplication, those can be written in many different forms. So in order to write divide, you can just put it over each other like a fraction. So you read this as k divided by 3. So if we're dividing and we want to get rid of this k, or get rid of the 3 so that we can just have k by itself, we're going to have to do the inverse operation, which is multiplication. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply by 3 on this side and on this side. So 3 times this and 3 times this. So our equation is still balanced because of the multiplication property of equality. And we're going to cancel out the 3's. And we're going to do 9 times 3, which gives you k is equal to 27. Not too bad. Let's just keep going. Let's do another example. This one, example 4, says negative 11 is equal to n divided by negative 6. Now we're solving for n, so we have to get n by itself. So let's get rid of the 6 by doing the reverse operation. So instead of dividing negative 6, we're going to multiply by negative 6 on this side and multiply by negative 6 on this side. So our equations are still balanced because of the multiplication property of equality. So we can do the same thing to both sides, they'll still be balanced. So our negative 6's are going to cancel out. And then we have negative 6 times negative 11. If you remember, negative times a negative gives you a positive. So we're going to have n is equal to a positive 66. Alright, let's go ahead and do a word problem real quick. So we're going to have to read the problem, come up with our own equation, and then solve it. Okay, it says a spiral toy that can bounce down a flight of stairs is made out of 80 feet of wire. Write and solve an equation to find how many can be made from 4,000 feet of wire. So, I read the problem, and now I need to kind of pick out my important information. The first thing I realize is that each toy is made out of 80 feet. So, 80 feet each. So, then I also realized that they want us to figure out how many, so we're trying to find how many can be made from 4,000 feet of wire. So we're given 4,000, so we have our big number, and we're going to be splitting it up into 80 feet each. And that will tell us how many toys we can make. So I know that if I said that each toy is made out of 80 feet, that means anytime you're saying something each, if I give you 2 pieces of candy each, we're going to be multiplying. So we have 80 times, so we don't know how many. So 80 times, I'm going to make it a T for toys, equals 4,000 feet. So that means that now we have 80 times however many toys we make is going to say that we need 4,000 feet of wire. So I'm going to have to now solve for T. So here we're multiplying, so I have to do the inverse operation, which is division, to cancel out the 80 from this side and from this side. So now my 80s are gone, so I have T is equal to, now what is T equal to? Let's go ahead and divide. Whenever you're dividing, you can cancel out some zeros, so I'm going to cancel out 1 0 here and on both sides. So I'm going to have 400 divided by 8. So 8 goes into 45 times. and then we get 0, and then it goes in 0 times. So t is equal to 50. Now we have to remember, what were we solving for again? So it says find out how many can be made. So our answer is t is 50 toys. We just want to add that toys on just so we remember what we are solving for. So each toy has uses 80 feet of wire. You have a total of 4,000 feet of wire. So we know that we can make 50 toys out of that 4,000 feet. Alright, go ahead and make sure that you have all of your notes done. If you need to, go ahead and rewind the video if something was troubling you, and come in with your questions tomorrow. So let's go ahead and look at your on your own question. Alright, you have 4 problems to do. Problem 1 reads -2 times a equals 10. Go ahead and solve for a. Number 2 says y divided by 5 equals -8. So go ahead and solve for y. Number 3 is 4 times x equals -32. Go ahead and solve for x. And number 4 says x divided by 6 equals -54. So go ahead and solve for x there as well. And make sure to watch your signs. Good luck!